At 28 years old, with 4 world championships, 71 race wins, and a contract running through 2028, Max Verstappen just told the world he might walk away from Formula One at the end of this season, not in a moment of post-race frustration, not in a throwaway comment that could be walked back the next morning. He said it clearly, on camera, to the BBC when asked directly whether he was going to leave at the end of 2026. His answer, "That's what I'm saying." That is not a threat. That is not a negotiating tactic. That is a 4-time world champion telling the sport that gave him everything that he is not enjoying himself, and that he has no interest in staying where he is not enjoying himself. And the people who know Verstappen best are saying the same thing. This is not empty. This is real. The countdown may have already started. What is actually happening? In 2026, to understand why Verstappen is at this point, you have to understand what Formula One actually looks like in 2026, because it looks nothing like the sport he dominated for the previous 4 years. The 2026 regulations represent the most significant technical overhaul F1 has seen in years. The power unit split has shifted dramatically, moving from roughly 80% internal combustion engine to an almost 50-50 balance between the ICE and electrical power. The result is a completely different driving experience. Drivers must now manage battery harvesting and deployment in ways that fundamentally change how they approach corners, braking zones, and overtaking. Reigning world champion Lando Norris said, "F1 has gone from its best cars in 2025 to its worst in 2026. Fernando Alonso has called the series the Battery World Championship and said the extreme lifting and coasting required through high-speed corners is now so straightforward that Aston Martin's hospitality chef could drive his car. But nobody has been more vocal or more damaging to F1's image than Verstappen himself. He has compared the new cars to Mario Kart. He has called the racing artificial. After failing to reach Q3 at Suzuka for the first time since 2015, he called the Red Bull RB22 undrivable. He said he is beyond frustrated and does not know any words to describe how he feels about the sport right now. That is a man who is not venting. That is a man who has genuinely lost the connection to something he spent his entire life building toward. The Red Bull collapse, making it worse. Here is what is compounding everything. Verstappen is not just dealing with regulations he hates, he is dealing with those regulations inside a Red Bull team that has fallen apart structurally in the past 12 months. The list of high-profile departures from Red Bull over the past year includes team principal Christian Horner, chief engineering officer Rob Marshall, advisor Helmut Marko, and Verstappen's number 2 mechanic Ole Schack, who left after nearly 22 years with the team. And then came the announcement that changed everything. Gianpiero Lambiase, Verstappen's race engineer since he joined Red Bull in 2016, will be leaving to join McLaren. This is not a minor personnel change. Verstappen himself said years ago, on record, "I have said to him I only work with him. As soon as he stops, I stop too." He said that, in those words. And now GP is leaving. Jos Verstappen, speaking to Dutch outlet Race Express about his son's future, said simply, "I think things have changed. Certainly, after 4 championships, you have achieved a lot together." When a driver's father speaks in past tense about what has been achieved, not what will be achieved, that is worth paying close attention to. The contract clause. Nobody is talking about enough. There is a legal dimension to this situation that changes the timeline entirely. Verstappen can break out of his Red Bull contract, which runs through 2028. At the end of this year, if he is outside the top 2 in the F1 drivers' standings at the summer break in August. Given that he currently sits 9th in the championship with 12 points, that release clause is very likely to become available to him. This means the decision is not theoretical. It is not somewhere in the distant future. Between August and October of this year, Verstappen will have a live option to walk away from his contract, from Red Bull, and potentially from Formula One entirely. That window is months away, not years. Months. Sky Sports F1 commentator David Croft, when asked whether the retirement threats were genuine, was unambiguous. "No, I don't think they're empty threats at all. One thing we've learned from Max in his 11 years in Formula One is that he pretty much sticks to what he says. Sabbatical or retirement. What's the real plan? Here's where the picture becomes slightly more nuanced. Because walking away from F1 does not necessarily mean Verstappen is done with motorsport entirely. Sources have indicated to ESPN that Verstappen is leaning more toward a sabbatical rather than full retirement. But there is never a guarantee of return once a driver leaves, even one as gifted as him. Verstappen has been open for years about his interest in endurance racing. This year he is racing at the Nürburgring 24 Hours, a race he has competed at twice previously in high-profile events. The Le Mans 24 Hours, the World Endurance Championship. These are not consolation prizes for a driver leaving F1 in disgrace. For someone like Verstappen, they represent a completely different kind of challenge, one that does not require managing a battery every time he approaches a corner. Verstappen himself put it plainly. You just think about, is it worth it, or do I enjoy being more at home with my family, or seeing my friends more when you're not enjoying your sport? That is not the language of someone planning a dramatic return. That is someone genuinely reassessing what he wants from his life at 28 years old, a man who has already achieved more than almost anyone in the history of the sport and who no longer feels compelled to keep showing up for something that stopped being fun. What it would mean for F1. Let's be direct about the stakes here. Formula One without Max Verstappen in 2027 would be a different sport commercially, narratively, and culturally. Verstappen knows he could take his millions of fans to another series, along with their ticket purchases, merchandise spending, and television ratings. F1 would lose enormous marketability and commercial clout without him, and Verstappen knows it. Red Bull boss Laurent Mekies, when asked about the prospect of Verstappen leaving, said, "We are having zero discussions about those aspects. We have a lot of work to do, but I'm sure by the time we give him a fast car, he will be a much happier Max." That response tells you everything about where Red Bull stands, hoping that car performance solves a problem that has clearly grown beyond car performance. The regulations he hates are not changing. The engineer he trusted most is leaving. The team around him has been hollowed out. And a man who has always been honest about walking away when the joy disappears is telling anyone who listens that the joy has disappeared. The retirement bomb is not a headline. It is a situation with a live fuse and a very specific detonation window. August is coming, and Max Verstappen has never once said something he did not mean. Hit subscribe for more F1 coverage like this every week. Drop your thoughts in the comments below on whether you think he actually walks away, and the next video is already on screen. See you there.